Hi guys, so in this video I'll be teaching you guys differential calculus. Okay, I'll be teaching you guys the differential calculus, and this part of calculus is very rampant in your exam. Okay, so now let's start with this class, differential calculus. Okay, now there are different parts of differential calculus. Okay, we have power rule, product rule, quotient rule, chain rule, sum rule, etc. Okay, so in this class, I'll be taking guys in this video. I'll be teaching you guys how to use power rule and how to use what how to solve question that is coming out from power rule and how to solve question that is coming out from product rule. Now, our next class we'll proceed to quotient rule, chain rule, and so on. Okay, yes. Let's start with power rule. Now, how are you going to know? If you look at it very well, there are various rules under differential calculus, right? Yes, there are many rules under differential calculus. Now, take note that all this covers all you need to know about differential calculus. Okay. So now let's continue. Now, how are you going to know a question? How are you going to identify if a question is coming out from power rule or product rule or quotient rule? It's very easy. Okay. Now, power rule, from the word power, if you look at the question, you find out that the variable carries a power. You know that, oh, this question is coming out from what? Power rule. Okay, it's very easy. If you look at the board here, if you look, you will see different type of questions, right? Yes, so if you look at this number 2, y is equal to minus 2s cube. Cube here is a power, right? Yes. So how to know if a question is coming out from power rule? S usually carries a power, right? Yes, you will just know. When you see it, you will know. Okay. Now, so this first part, this is how it is usually represented. Okay. Yes. Now, let's say for example, they give us a particular question. They said, find the derivative of y is equals to 2s squared, for example. Now if you look at this question, it looks exactly like this. Right, this is y. Then a is what? A means the coefficient. A is the coefficient of s. Okay, coefficient of x. Then s is x. Then y. N is what? N is the power. So if you look at it very well, so this is how power rule is represented. These are questions that's coming out from power rule is presented. Okay, y is equals to as raised to power n. Okay, where a is what? A is the coefficient, right? S is s. Then we know that n is what? N is the power. Now, how are you going to solve question that is coming out from power rule? It's very easy. Okay, so what are we going to do? We need to take we need to differentiate y with respect to s. So this is the formula we need to use to solve question that's coming out from power rule. Okay, so let me go to this side. Okay. Now, how are you going to solve? Let's solve this first question first. How are you going to solve it using power rule? It's very easy. We need to take the word. We need to differentiate y with respect to s, which is what? Now, it's version of y with respect to s, which is what? The y over what? The s, right? Yes. Now, on that thing, I want to tell you guys, the y over the s is still something as what? Is it something as what? F of s. Okay. Yes, it's something as f of s. So if the differentiation of y with respect to x, you see something as what? F of x. F prime x, right? You see something as what? F of x. Now, this f, this is prime, right? F of s, this thing, it means that, it's telling us that we need to differentiate one time. So I don't understand. So, in the place of the y, the s, I can put what? F of s. I don't understand. So, in the place of the y, the s, I can say, I can do like this. F of s is equals to what? A dot multiplied by n s n raised power raised power n minus 1, right? Yes. So the y over the s is something as what? F of s. Okay. Yes. Now another thing I want to tell you guys is very important. Please take note of that. Take note of these things. Very important. Okay. So when you see something like this, it means that you differentiate y with respect to s one times, right? Then if you see something like this, it means that what? You differentiate y with respect to s two times. Okay, this is very important. Okay, so take note that the y over there is something as what? F of s. Okay, now let's continue. So this is the formula we used to calculate, we used to solve for questions under product, under power rule. Okay, so the formula is the y over the s, or we can say f of x, right, is equals to a multiplied by n s, then raised power n minus 1. Okay, yes. Now let's solve this particular, this is formula, this is how to solve it. Okay, so this is formula we are going to use. Okay, this one means multiplication, right? So multiply by, okay, so let's continue. So this is the formula we're going to use to solve questions coming up from power rule. It's very easy. Okay, so let's look at the derivative of y is equals to 2s squared. So it's very easy. Now what is this formula? What is this formula telling us? It's telling us that, remember, I told you guys that a is the coefficient, right? S is the variable. Then 2 is the n is the power, right? Yes. Now to solve this type of thing, and to solve questions under power rule, what I'm going to do, we'll multiply. This is very important. We'll multiply the variable by the power. Look at it. Now, normally we have something like this. Y is equals to a s raised power n, right? Yes. Now, how are you going to solve question coming out from power? It's very easy. We'll multiply the variable, which is s, by the power. So, which will now be something like this. It's equals to something like this. A times, we multiply the power, we multiply the variable by all the power, which is n, right? Then times what? The variable, right? We multiply the variable. Let me write this towards this side. Okay. I'm coming. So 8 times, multiply the power, multiply the variable by the power, right? So n times x, right? Yes. What next are we going to do? Subtract 1 from the power. So n is minus 1. So that is it. So that is how you solve questions under power rule. Okay. So what are we going to, so that is what this part is telling us. So this is the formula. Okay, we are going to use. The very first thing we are going to do to solve questions coming out from power rule, we multiply the variable by the power, then we subtract 1 from the power. Simple. So let's do it now. So if they tell us to look for a derivative of if they tell us to find the derivative of y is equals to 2s squared, it's very easy. So we do something like this. F of x is equals to, this is the power, right? So 2 times, now this is the power, we multiply the variable by the power, right? So 2 times s, right? Then what I'm going to do next, we subtract 1 from the power, so 2 minus 1, right? Yes. So if we continue, something like this equals to 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times s is x, then 4 times x is 4x, right? Then 2 minus 1 give us 1, right? So our answer is what? 4s. So that is it. So this is how you solve questions under power rule. Now let's solve other questions. Okay. So this is very easy. Now let's solve other questions. Question 1. Y is equals to, and before I continue, this is very important. Okay. Now, for example, if they tell us to look for a derivative of y is equals to 3, for example, or y is equals to 4, or any value. Now, if they tell us to look for the derivative of a value that does not carry s, or that does not carry variable, the derivative of these values are known as constants. Okay, they're known as what? They're known as constants. Okay, they're known as constant. Okay, so take note that the derivative of a constant is usually what? Usually 0. Okay, how do you know a constant? A constant does not take s. Let me understand. It doesn't take s. Look at this number 1 question. 5 is a constant here because y does not take a variable. It doesn't take s. So now let's continue. Now let's solve the very first question. Y is equals to what? 3s squared plus 2s plus 5. So that we're going to do this. Now, this question is coming out from what? It's coming out from where? It's coming out from power rule. How do you know that? Because the variable carries power. Remember, this s has to carry 1 here, right? Yes, because anything raised by 1 give you that same thing, right? So the variable carries a power, right? Yes, so that's how you know that this question is coming out from power rule. Now let's solve. It's very easy using the formula. So if they tell us to look for the derivative of this function, right? So what I'm going to do is we'll do like this. We'll say, okay, we differentiate y with respect to x, or we can say this is the same thing, which is the y dx is the same thing as what? F of x, right? Yes. So this means that this is not 1, this is prime. So this means that we differentiate this function 1 times. Okay, so let's continue. It's very easy. What I'm going to do, we'll multiply the variable by what? The power, right? So 3 times this is the variable, the multiply the variable by the power, right? So 2, which is the power, times what? The variable, right? So what I'm going to do next, we subtract 1 from the power, right? Yes, so 2 minus 1, right? Then plus, we do the same thing here. 2 times, now we multiply the variable by 1, right? By the power, which is 1. So 1 times x. What I'm going to do next, we subtract 1 from what? From the power, right? Then we continue plus. Now, the derivative of a constant is what? Is usually 0, right? So 5 is a constant. It does not take a variable. So therefore, the derivative of, if we differentiate 5, it will give us what? Give us 0, right? Yes. So let's continue. Let's simplify further. 3 times 2 is what? 6. 6 times x is what? 6x. 2 minus 1 is what? 1, right? Then plus 2 times 1 is 2. Then times x is 2x. Then 1 minus 1 is what? 0, right? Yes. Remember, anything raised to power 0 is what? Is 1, right? So when the value is raised to power of 0, is 1, right? So in place of s, we put what? We put 1, right? Yes, times 1. 2 times 1 is equals 2, right? So let's continue. So this will be our final answer, which is 6s plus 2. So this is our final answer. It's very easy, okay? Now let's move to the next question, which is question 2. So it's very easy. This other question still coming out from what? Power rule. It's very easy. Okay, so continue. Y is equals to what? Minus 2s cubed, right? Yes, remember, this is the coefficient, this is the power. So what I'm going to do? F of s, right? F of s is equals to what? F of s is the same as what? Differentiating y, is the same as what? The y over the s, right? Yes. So differentiating y with respect to s. So let's continue. So what am I going to do? We multiply the variable by the power, right? 3 times s, which is the variable. Then we subtract 1 from the power, right? So 3 minus 1. It's very easy. Minus 2 times 3 will give us what? Minus 6. Minus 6 times s will give us minus 6s. Then we subtract 1 from 3 will give us 2, right? So this is our answer. So it's very easy. So power is very, very easy, okay? Now let's do the other one, the other question, which is question 3, okay? So y is equals to minus 2 over 3 s to the power 4. Still very easy, okay? Remember, this is what? This is the coefficient, right? Yes, so to look at the derivative of this, we'll differentiate y with respect to s, right? Yes. So let's continue. Minus 2 over 3, then times. Now we multiply the variable by what? The power, right? So 4 times what? 4 times x, right? We'll subtract 1 from the power, right? Subtract 1 from the power. So it's very easy. So now get something like this. Minus 2 over 3 times 4. 4 times s give us 4s, right? Then 4 minus 1 give us 3, right? So we are not done yet. So let's simplify further. Okay, so equals to 2 times 4 is what? Is 8, right? Then divide 3. Don't forget about the minus. Then s cubed. So this is our final answer. Okay, now let's move to the last part, which is the question 4, right? So question 4 says y is equals to 3x raised to power what? Half, right? Raised to power half or 1 or raised to power half. So how we're going to do this? Very easy. Same thing. We'll do what? We differentiate y with respect to s, right? We can say f of s, right, is equals to what? What I'm going to do, multiply the variable by what? The power, right? So this is the power multiplied by what? The variable. Then I'm coming. Let me start. Let me create space for that. Okay, so f of s is equals to 3 times, this is the power, right? We multiply the variable by the power, right? Yes, so half, which is the power, times what? X. Then we'll subtract 1 from what? subtract 1 from the power, right? Yeah, so let's just continue. We get something like this. We have something like this. Remember now, half minus 1. Subtract 1 minus half will give us what? Will still give us minus half, okay? Yes, now let's do it. Let me show you how to do it. It's very easy. Okay, so half minus 1. Remember, it can still be something like this, right? Anything divided 1 will give us that same thing. So it can still be something like this, right? Look at it. Half minus 1. See something as what? See something as half minus 1 over 1, right? Yes, so it's the same thing. Okay, so let's continue. What is the LCM of what is the LCM of everything? LCM of everything here is 2, right? Yes, so equals to 2 divide 2 give us 1, right? 2, these 2 cancel these 2, right? 2, we cancel these 2. 2 divide 2 is 1. 1 times 1 will give us still 1, right? Yes. Then minus, don't forget, okay, let's continue minus. Now 2 divide 1 will give us 2, right? 2 divide 1 will give us 2. 2 times this one will give us 2, right? Then don't forget about this other 2, this the denominator, right? Now let's continue. 1 minus 2 is what? Is minus 1. So that is just it. So that is why you found out that half minus 1 is still something as what is minus half. Okay, so that is just it. You take the LCM, then you do the subtraction, and you get your answer. You just take the LCM, you get your answer. Okay, so now let's continue. So that is just it. 3 times half will give us 3 over 2, right? Then, or let's just continue. Okay, 3 times half, then times x. Half minus 1 is what? Is minus half, right? I'm showing you guys I is it minus half, right? Yes. So now let's continue further. Let's simplify further. Now 3 times half, 3 times 1 over 2, see something as what? 3 over 2, right? Yes. So see something as what? 3 over 2. Then 3 over 2 times s will give us what? Will give us 3 over 2s. Then the power is what? Minus half, right? Are we done yet? We can leave our answer like this, but we can still simplify further. Okay. So now let me tell you guys something. Now, I tell you guys, according to indices, when your value is just power a negative number, you see something as well. You see something as 1 divide that value, and you put the power there. I don't even understand. Let's say, for example, a is just power minus 2. You see something as what? 1 divide a, then you put the power there. I don't even understand. So that's just it. Let's say, for example, okay, let's say 3 raised power minus 3. You see something as what? 1 divide 3, then you put the power there. So it's still the same thing, okay? So now let's go. Now, apart from that one, let me tell you guys on that thing. Okay, let me tell you guys on that thing. Okay, half. Okay, let's say 2 raised to the power of half, or 1, yeah, 2 raised to the power of half. You see something as what? See something as square root of 2. Okay, yes, this is square root of 2. 3 raised to power 1/3. 3 raised to power 1/3. See something as what? The cube root of what? It's something as what? The cube root of 3. Okay, yes. So let's tell you that square root of 2 is still something as what? 2 raised to power what? Half. Okay, yes. Cube root of 4, for example, is the something as what? Something as 4 raised to power 1/3. Okay, so that is just it. Now let's go back to this place. Okay, now if you look at this place here, x is just power minus half, right? Yes. Now raise the power a negative number, right? So this one is something as well. Remember, let's go back to this place. A raised power minus 2 is something as what? It's something as 1 divide a, then put the power there, right? Yes. So let's do it now. So it's still exactly the same thing. So we do it like this. 1 divide s, then we put our power there, right? Half, right? Yes. Now remember, I told you guys that it's very easy now, right? So let's continue. Remember, I told you guys that I told you guys that square roots of a number now. Let's say, square roots of a, for example, see something as what? See something as a raised power what? Half, right? Yes, a raised power half, right? So that is just it. Now if you look at this one, a raised power half, that means a raised power half is something as what? The square root of a, right? Yes. So x raised power half is something as what? The square root of x, right? Yes. So in this place we put what? Square root of x, right? Yes. So everything here will take you to this place. So if we take you to this place, we'll now have something like this. 3 to times 1 over root s, right? Yes, 3 over 2 times 1 over root s, right? Yes, so 3 times 1 will give us 3. Then 2 times root s will give us 2 root s. Will give us 2 root s. So this is our answer. So our final answer is what? Our final answer to question 4 is what? Is 3 divided by 2 root x, right? So this is our final 2 root x, right? So these are final answer. So that's how you solve questions under power rule. Okay, it's very, very easy. Okay, so just that some questions are complex, you just need to simplify it. Okay, yes. And let's move to the next aspect of differential calculus, which is product rule.